And good evening to you all. Once again, welcome to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly, and it's time for another edition of RETCONVERSATIONS, which is the series where I'll be specifically talking about, and this will probably happen for the rest of the month, interspersed with some discussion about other companies' comics, but where I'll be talking about the DC New You, the DC relaunch, all the number ones, the 52 number ones. We're not going to be reviewing all of them, although I am going to be reading all of them, but there are some that I kind of am double dipping on while I wait for my shipments from TFAW, thingsforanotherworld.com, because they're slow as hell, unless you want to pay $30 in shipping, which I don't. But I do like having digital copies of some of these comics. So we're going to talk about the ones that I was most interested in this week. I think the only one that I really didn't get was Legion Lost, #1. And that was more of an oversight rather than really anything else. But I'll, when I get it, when I actually get the hard copy, I will read it and I'll talk about it. Okay. So let's kick it off with these new #1s. Okay, so we've got Batman and Robin. Now, I did not read past the first issue of this comic when Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly were doing it, because it was just more weird Morrison shit that he was doing with Batman. Although it was, Dick Grayson Batman, not the Bruce Wayne Batman that he had previously fucked with, and I just didn't want to see that. I really like the father-son dynamic that's at work here. The other, really the only other Bat book that's been out so far, Batman book, I should say, has been Detective Comics. And that was more of a focus on the villains rather than on Batman himself. But I like the fact that this book really takes the focus and brings it to Bruce and Damian and their relationship, because they are father and son. But I enjoyed this issue a lot more than I thought I was going to. Peter Tomasi wrote this. He's been writing this comic for a little while now, and it makes me kind of think twice about maybe going back and getting some of his other issues. But I like the fact that Batman is dealing with his, he wants to deal with his parents' death, his parents' murders, a little bit differently. Instead of constantly mourning it, he wants to kind of celebrate their lives rather than just constantly mourn their deaths. So that's a really big step for Bruce, and I think that's it's an interesting direction to take the character in. Damian, he's such a little prick sometimes. I mean, but he's a great character and a great foil for Bruce, because he's not. He's not fun. He's not fun like Dick was as Robin. He's not an idiot like Jason was when he was Robin. He's not, totally into like hero worship like Tim was. Because he can go from being really bratty to lethal like that. I mean, it's just a snap of the fingers, and he can he was raised by the League of Assassins, so I mean that it only goes it's that's pretty it's pretty clearly stated that he's a dangerous young man to be around. But I wasn't nearly as interested in the plot of what was actually of the action that was going on as I was in the interplay between Bruce and Damian, because they have a really interesting, probably the most complex, I would say, certainly the most complex relationship that that Batman has ever had with a Robin, because this is his son, despite the fact that, you know, that he was raised by the League of Assassins. This is still his son, and he still wants to take care of him and, you know, protect him, but also stop him from making, you know, occasionally stupid and, you know, potentially fatal mistakes. So again, it was just, you know, it was a really strong beginning for Batman. This is, you know, the first book that I've really enjoyed seeing Batman in, and it's one of the, you know, and I like how this is still kind of carrying over from you know, what has come before, rather than just, you know, okay, well, it's 5 years ago or something like that. Because some books are doing that, some books are following up directly as a result of, you know, the things that just happened, and some are doing the reboot or the retcon. So again, that was, you know, a really, you know, solidly written book. Like I said, I didn't really care about the plot, but the characters are the most important thing, and, you know, good characterization can win out over plot, I think, more often than we care to admit. Red Lanterns. This was a book that I was really interested to see, you know, because it's the only, you know, group of lanterns other than the green ones that have their own book. You know, specifically dedicated to their color, because, you know, let's face it, I mean, the Red Lanterns are, you know, kind of the most interesting of the bunch, because they are, you know, they're driven by, you know, this kind of impossible rage, and, you know, a murderous desire, if you will, but there are definitely moments where you see that there's kind of a, you know, an altruistic element to them, that they don't exist solely to just, you know, kill and destroy. You know, they're not just villains. They actually believe in what they're doing, and sometimes that's scarier than this, you know, the scariest villain that just does whatever he does for money or power or whatever. So the first couple moments of the comic book, we have Dexter, who is easily my favorite of the Red Lanterns, because he's a cat and he's a Red Lantern. You know, he's filled with rage, because if you go back, I don't know how many issues it was, probably one of my favorite B stories ever to be printed in comics, at least within the last several years, where it goes into Dexter's origins. So just him as a character, I think, is uber cool. You know, but what we have here, the central issue here really is that Atrocitus, as, you know, the, you know, kind of de facto leader of the Red Lanterns, he's really dealing with the fact that some of his rage has waned since the death of Krona, and he's pissed off. Not only that, his rage is waning. He's also pissed off that he didn't get the chance to kill Krona, and that it was actually Hal Jordan that did. He's a little scared that, you know, maybe he's lost his purpose a little bit, and also that, you know, the other Red Lanterns, I think, you know, he feels sense that his rage is waning, and, you know, what will they really need him for? Because you have a feeling that he wants to stay the leader, and that he wants to lead them to this place where vengeance can be taken, instead of it just being, you know, just out and out rage. So, you know, he kind of plugs himself, you know, he uses the blood of Krona to kind of plug himself into the rage of the universe. And within that rage, when he sees what's going on, he sees a much different, you know, he sees his purpose again, I should say. You know, again, he needs his Red Lanterns to do this mission, whatever this mission is. But do they need him? That's really the question that's asked. So it's, you know, one being's fear of, you know, kind of almost an obsolescence. So I mean, it's strong. This was, you know, again, a really strong introductory issue. This is a good issue to kind of pick up if you want to know more about who these, you know, who the Red Lanterns are. So it's a good number one. It's actually a really good number one. It's very strong because it has bits of Atrocitus's origins in there. And nothing really about the origins of the Red Rings or anything like that, but, you know, and why they're, you know, spewing blood all the time. And whoa, is that like kind of bat chick Red Lantern? She's pretty sexy. There's also this weird B story that takes place on Earth about, you know, this old man getting beaten up and, you know, his sons or grandsons. I don't know what the hell's going on. It made no sense. I'm sure it will as time goes on, but it just seemed like it wasn't finished. There was something that was supposed to come on a page where one of these two young men were selected to be a Red Lantern, but that never happened. So I think that was a little bit of an oversight. But aside from that, I think this is a really strong issue. I think you know, Peter Milligan did a really good job writing it. I think Ed Benes did a great job with the art because he's, you know, he's a terrific artist. So yeah. So again, another really, I think a really strong number one. You know, even with that kind of lame-o B story. Speaking of terrific, let's talk about Mr. Terrific. You know, Michael Holt, he's a character that I never really got into at all, because, you know, he was part of the JSA. I didn't read JSA. I didn't read really any of the team books from DC other than Secret Six. It was the only team book that I read in the DC universe. So since that's over, you know, so now I have to learn, you know, something about Mr. Terrific, and I like Mr. Terrific. I think this is a strong, again, you know, it's another strong opening issue, because it gives good background on who he is and what he's gone through. There are, you know, there are definitely, you know, this is a book that does contain some racial overtones. Not, I mean, it's not. I should say undertones. They're very. They're certainly not overt. They are, you know, where he actually, you know, says at one point in time, you know, instead of saying this, why don't you say, thanks, black man, for saving us from the homicidal blah blah blah. And then there is, you know, he has this, you know, this white, you know, beautiful female friend, that, you know, he and she, they both, you know, feel like they are just friends, but there's, you know, another black woman who is, you know, kind of in love with Michael, you know, maybe, whatever, wants to have a relationship. And so, I mean, that does factor into this book. So I think that it actually took some time to divide itself and say that this is a book that is going to be partially about the fact that Mr. Terrific is black. And that's, I mean, that's fine, as long as they handle it well and tastefully and not overdo it. Then that's fine. You know, the plot here is really interesting. Here we've got someone, you know, we've got this normal, ordinary, everyday guy who is literally turned into a man with genius intellect, but of course he uses that genius in a particularly evil way. So Mr. Terrific is called in because science is his big thing, and you know, that kind of leads to the, you know, the kind of climactic scene in which there's a party going on, and if there's a party going on in a comic book, it's never a good thing. Never. Never, ever, ever. It always leads to badness, and it really does lead to some badness here. So I'm really interested to see how this is going to turn out. Again, this is a really strong number one. We've got Eric Wallace, who wrote it, Gianluca Gugliotta. There's a lot of, Italian, and Hispanic names for artists right now, which is great. I'm glad they're diversifying. And it's just, it's a really nice touch. So these are 3 strong issues, and we're going to return back with some pretty weak ones. So stay tuned.